Welcome to the Catholic Leadership Network podcast, where we connect the wisdom and experience of ministry leaders to the realities of ministry in the trenches. We journey with ministry leaders through all the hidden aspects that help us to become fruitful ministers. Here at the Catholic Leadership Network podcast, we discuss the stuff that no one told you about Catholic ministry and strive to help ministry leaders succeed from the beginning. Our hosts are Christy, the Director for Missionary Discipleship for the Diocese of Cleveland, and Sarah Jarzembowski, the Director for Marriage and Family Life at St. Elizabeth Ann Seton Parish in Crofton, Maryland. Please show your support for our efforts by clicking like and subscribe and commenting below. And now here are Sarah and Christy.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Catholic Leadership Network podcast, where we're trying to get our stuff together very early in the morning. And I don't know how we're doing today. But isn't that always the case in ministry? Is like we think we have our stuff together, and then the Holy Spirit throws something at us and we have to pivot. And that's what happened this morning. Apparently my computer space is full. So I don't know why that is, but we'll figure that out. We are joined here together by Cari Reagan. Regan or Reagan?
Reagan.
Regan,
Yeah.
It is Regan. Okay,
Yeah.
Great. Well, welcome, Cari.
Thank you.
We're so glad that you're here to join us. Cari is one of Christy's compatriots there at the Diocese of Cleveland. For the time being, Cari is in a time of transition right now as we record this. So I'm just going to kind of pick apart the bio here, because right now today Cari is working in youth ministry at a parish in the diocese, but also doing some diocesan level youth ministry in digital media for the diocese and youth ministry. But in a couple of weeks, going to be working is the digital ministries coordinator for St. Basil the Great Church in Brecksville. Brecksville, Ohio. So very excited to hear about that transition. Cari studied theology and communications, writing her senior thesis on ministry in the digital age, exploring how youth ministries are using social media. And in her free time, she loves to read, especially Harry Potter. Oh, nice. Thanks to her coworker. Oh, is that right? And she bakes and likes to be with her family and friends. She lives in Cleveland with her husband John, and together they have one daughter, Nora, who is in heaven. Oh, Cari, we are so glad to have you here at the podcast. Thanks for joining our conversation. So digital media is one of those things that we come back to kind of on a somewhat regular basis, because it's where we tend to find a lot of resources is in the digital world. And as ministry leaders, we're regularly kind of looking for that. So tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are, and then, kind of getting into this transition. So welcome and tell us a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. So right after school, I had a couple of options and things to do, and I had a job offer at a parish in Cleveland doing somewhat similar to what I'm going to be doing at St. Basil, and it was social media marketing. It was a bulletin and some other things. And at that point in time, I was working in the marketing office at Walsh University, and I really, really loved it. And they also offered to keep me out in there, and then do something and work something out with campus ministry that I could work with them too. But there was one day I was sitting at the desk and I was like, I am not supposed to sit at a desk right now. Like, that is not what's supposed to happen. So my youth minister called me, and I had like 3 or 4 different job options that I was going in between. And she's like, so do you need a job? And I was like, no, not really. I have a couple options. And she's like, well, I know a place that's hiring, but like, it's not really posted. Like, do you want me to like call them? And I'm like, okay, like where, who, like, And so she said the parish name, and I had actually seen their listing for youth minister the year before. And I sat there with it for a little bit, and I was like, could I do this as a senior in college? Drive an hour back, like for like life nights and stuff once a week. Like could I make this work for a year? Do I want to make this work for a year? Or, am I just going to go with like let the Holy Spirit go and whatever will be like the correct place will come? Because I was looking at this job posting, like crying because it was perfect. Like it was written so well. The Father Steve, who's the pastor there, like he understood like written in the job description is taking time for personal prayer, going on a yearly retreat, like those things that are really important to the health and well-being of a minister. So it was like, of course, this is the kind of place that you want to work and be a part of. So I was at St. Francis for 3 years, a little over 3 years. And then Francine, who is the director of the Office of Youth Ministry for the diocese, called me, and we had worked on a couple projects together. And she said, I just got news that I can hire a new person in our office, and I would really like you to apply. I think that you have the skills and abilities, and you'd be really good at it. At this point, I also was kind of already working with Francine too, because, and I don't actually know how this came about. Maybe Francine knew that when I was in college, I wrote my thesis on social media and youth ministry, so I must care about it to some extent. But she had asked if I'd be interested in taking over the social media accounts, like a part-time thing, low contract, so that would be off her plate. So I'd already been doing that, and this was kind of the next step up. And so discerned it, and it was really, really hard to leave St. Francis, but it felt like the right next step for us. It was like right before my husband and I got married, so it was nice to have this period of time where like we came home at the same time, because the diocesan work schedule is a little bit more 9 to 5 than a youth minister schedule. It wasn't as like crazy trips over the summer, which, like, don't get me wrong, like that stuff is fun, like, and I miss some of that. But yeah, so I've been at the diocese for it'll be a little under 2 years. And then just again, we moved across town, and we've been going to St. Basil the Great, and my husband and I really, really like the parish. We moved this way to be able to go to that parish. It's his home parish from when he was a kid, but the pastor there is awesome, and they had this opening, and it just feels like the next right step for our family. Being back at a parish, it'll be a little more flexible for a family. So that's how we're going there. I've loved my time at the diocese. I've gotten to do super amazing, cool things, and meet awesome people like Christy. But yeah, so that's a little bit about where I'm from, where I'm going, and what's happening in life right now.
I love that you talk about the next right step.
Yeah.
It takes life that can sometimes seem overwhelming, and it just kind of brings it back down. And we don't like we're not in jobs for 20, 30, 40 years now. And I used to think that I was a failure for being in a job for 3, 4, 5 years and then moving on. And that's not it. God calls us to different places, and it sounds like the Holy Spirit has been guiding you throughout your life, and it is the next right step. I'm really loving that. That really sticks out to me. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So, Christy, you had some great questions that you posed. Where are we going next?
So I want to let the listeners know that, first of all, tell us your thoughts about things, because that is the reason why Cari is here today. So she heard our conversation with Sherry Hayes Pierce, and She said it was a really good conversation and that she enjoyed listening to it. And she heard some of the struggles that Sherry was talking about through her ministry. But what Cari said is she felt like there was a piece of that conversation that we didn't get to when we were talking to Sherry. And it was about kind of the difference between just communications in our parishes, at our diocese, or just in anybody's work in general. And then what digital evangelization is. And so, Cari,
Yeah.
that's your background, that's your education, that's where you've been working. And so, can you tell us what's the difference between communications and digital evangelization?
Yeah, it was funny because Francine sent me Christy's podcast with Sherry, and I was listening to it, and then I texted her the link to it, and I said, I have thoughts on this. And you clicked on it not knowing what it was. And it just
Yeah,
started playing in
so
your
I know, so that you guys know, like, I have no ego about this, and I do not listen to Us Back. And I told Cari, I said, here's the thing, I was there during the conversation, so I know what it sounded like.
Yeah,
So
because I splice things together afterwards. So I put the music and the
yeah,
prelude on,
there
afterwards.
is
So
entirely the tech.
yeah.
So I actually even was like listening to the intro music going, what is this? What am I listening to? And then I heard Sarah's voice saying, welcome to the Catholic Leadership Network podcast. And I was like, what? What? And then I was like, Cari listens to this? And then I was like, what episode? And then I heard it was Sherry, and I was like, oh, this makes sense. So anyway, Cari, let's talk.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was really, really intrigued by the very beginning when she's talking about like, should the bulletin rest in peace? Like, that's very like, that's a strong start. But yeah, the piece that now you don't have all that much time, so it's hard to get into everything. But I think there's a really big distinction between what we could call like the PR of church. Like a
Mm.
lot of uh, parishes and dioceses kind of fall into this. We're going to follow around the priest and the bishop and report on what's going on, which is good and important. And it's really important to show like these awesome things that are going on. Like we have amazing things happening all the time, and those stories need to be shared. But there's a difference between that and more of an evangelizing ministry online, which is what I'm more interested in. I have like some marketing background, so I also know how to share those stories, how to write them, and the importance of writing them. But it's also like, let's not forget that bishop or father had mass on the Feast of the Assumption, but let's talk about what it is, why it is, what we're actually celebrating, who's going to heaven, what do we believe about that? And then over time, also like developing more questions to it. Like, okay, this is what the East says about it, about the Assumption, but did you know, or no, this is what the West says about the Assumption. We've talked about that for the last few years. So hopefully you know and you have learned this. But did you know that the East believes, like the Eastern churches, the Byzantine church, they call it the dormition, the falling asleep of Mary. And like, let's like think about that and pray with that. And like, how does that like continue to shape your faith and change it? And I've just kind of been doing this like over the past couple of years, especially with the youth ministry pages at the diocese. And I couldn't really put words to what I was doing until recently. We have a diocesan youth advisory council, and they met with the bishop, and they had 4 different groups that presented on different topics. But one of the topics that they presented on was the group on schools and catechesis. And they said, like, we want to learn more, like we want to know more and about the faith. And I realized like what I've been doing with some of these posts that I've been putting out is I'm trying to teach people. Like I'm trying to use like these skills that we have to be able to share them. In my thesis, I talked a lot about like, when the kid is in the scroll, the teen is in the scroll in social media, what the youth ministry on social media, the importance of that is to remember, like, to be a light and like, okay, like, what am I doing the rest of the week? And where's my touch point back into the church? Not just on Sundays. And so you see a clip from the talk that was that Sunday, or you see the funny game that we played and you see people covered in shaving cream and that's so crazy. And oh my gosh, that was so fun. I can't wait to go next week. I know I'm not going to end up covered in shaving cream again, but like, those are my people. Those are my friends. This picture is funny though. I'm going to share it. And then all my friends see like, hey, like this church thing that I do is not all boring and Bibles and weird. And, you know, like Bibles are not weird. Don't get me wrong. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like,
They're a little weird. There's a little bit of weirdness in a
well,
Bible.
yeah, there are definitely weird stories, but yeah. But like, they
Fine.
have more to share and more to do, and this is a place where I'm seen, known, and loved. And I remember that on Thursday morning when I'm scrolling through my Instagram page. So,
Yeah.
or Friday night when I'm sad that no one's with me, but like, oh my gosh, Sunday is only 2 days away, and I'm gonna be with my people again soon. So
Yeah, it seems to me that there's kind of like 3 things that are needed equally. So communication, like, we're canceling morning mass. Air conditioning's out or whatever, or we're moving whatever. The homily from the weekend's mass, just to the PR, as you called it. And then the teaching aspect, which is that digital evangelization piece. Is there another piece? Are they equal? Is there nuance?
Yeah, I'd say there's probably nuance. Like, thinking about the things that tend to do the best. I remember maybe I was in like 6th or 7th grade. I got my first camera, like when you used to like take pictures in the mirror, like and make duck lips, like, that camera, like
Yeah.
the little cute one.
100%.
And I took it on, I don't know, a Girl Scout backpacking trip or something. And I had all these pictures of like flowers and, not grass, but like, flowers and trees and scenery. And a lot of them were really, really beautiful. But I printed all the ones with me and my friends, and I took like 500 pictures and like 20 of them were of me and my friends. And my mom said something to me that I think about all the time. She's like, people like to see pictures of people. And that is so true. It's what does the best, like pretty much all the time. Before this, I was scrolling through the Instagram feed. I didn't cross-check to Facebook, but I also know that that's what gets shared the most. People like to see pictures of people and know what's going on and see who's a part of it. A couple of the posts that did really, really well recently was a picture of the Diocesan Youth Advisory Council meeting with the bishop. And here's the pictures of, this group and that group. And then they comment on it because they're really excited. Like, oh my gosh, did you see you've been featured? And so
those made Christy very excited.
Well,
I mean, because there was listening. Christine's face just lit up super bright and she just jumped through the screen.
So I'm not good at like the social medias, but what I was going to ask is, Cari, did you guys post one of the things that I thought, one of the photos that I saw that was so cool, was you took the picture of the teens taking the selfie with the bishop. Yes. I mean, capturing that moment, like you can see the excitement in their faces. It was like literally as they were gathering together. Yes. With Bishop Malesic. Yeah.
Yeah. So because I remember and so as that moment was happening, like I had the camera with me. And yeah, I had taken pictures of them all together with the bishop. And then someone was like, oh, let's get a photo together. And I ran back, grabbed the camera, put it on, snapped a bunch of pictures. And I even think they might have rearranged themselves. Like part of me is like, I might have actually rearranged them so you could see most of the kids or said kneel down or, But there's photos of the moment when Pope Francis took the selfie with people. And like you have the selfie, but there's so many pictures of him taking the selfie. And like it's kind of one of those like experiences of like these are real human people that are around. But also it was just the joy of the moment. Like the teens wanted the selfie with the bishop. Like we had the nice photo on the nice camera, but the teens wanted to like have that photo for themselves. And actually Bishop told me, he's like, hey, here's my phone. Can you take one of me and the teens? Because people are always taking pictures of me and I don't always get them. And I was like, Bishop, I'll send it to you. But he's like, I want to have it for me so that I can, show my friends or whoever, or remember this night, because it was really great to be able to spend some time with the teens and enjoy that time. So yeah.
So what are some tools and resources we could use to help us get these stories out? And I think we're doing okay with the info. And I think Sherry really gave us some good resources for the info and the PR, but more about that teaching and that humanity and relational part of it. What are some tools that you use that might be helpful for us?
Yeah. So what I tend to do, at least in my position now, I don't know if this is what I'll continue to do going forward, but I think of social media in a month-long process, and I use Canva. I really like Canva. It's very user-friendly. I have experience in graphic design using like InDesign and different Adobe things, but Canva is really easy for a quick day-to-day kind of thing to just get it done.
And
it's
you can get the free upgrade as a parish.
Yes.
Do the work, do the process, because it is worth getting pro.
Yes.
Oh,
Canva Pro is totally worth it. And nonprofits get the free.
Nonprofits. Yep.
Yeah. So I will, I primarily, I think that is also important to make a distinction of like, there's different platforms, and at the parish, I think that I will probably differentiate somewhat between platforms. I'll probably still cross post between things, but at the parish level, like Facebook is, kind of like where the parents live and a little bit of the older crowd too, but parents kind of live on Facebook. They can also be on Instagram, but it's usually more the young adult teen crowd on Instagram. TikTok, like also the same. Anybody can be on any of them, but like that tends to be where like Gen Z is a lot. And I currently don't do TikTok. I did it at the parish that I worked at a little bit. But I mostly look at, in my current position, I plan for Instagram because most of my audience is youth ministers and their teens. And my hope is that the things that are created and sent out by the Office of Youth Ministry are things that are easily shareable for youth ministers to be able to share with their teens, so that the youth minister doesn't have to put in all of the effort in making posts and being able to teach their teens, and they can share it to their teens so that they know that it's the Feast of St. Lucy or it's the month of May. Like, why don't you like refresher on the different mysteries of the Rosary? So I will open up Canva and make my thing for the month. I'll make a bunch of little squares, and then I go to the calendar and I'll put in a bunch of feast days. The big ones for sure are definitely getting a post, and then some other saints, and I'll try and just Google like saints of the month, May. And then also noting other important like American feasts, that's not quite right. Celebrations, like Mother's Day is in May. So Mother's Day is important to pay attention to. Memorial Day is in May. Like we should probably remember Memorial Day. And then like throughout the year, things like Martin Luther King Day, 9/11, like, things that are really important to society as a whole. Also noticing, like, I've done, this past February, I don't think I did as much, but in the past, I've done like a lot of posts during Black Catholic History Month about Black Catholic saints. So just noting like what's going on in the world, and how you can share the faith through those things. So then I'll create my posts like that, and then I schedule them, because I post to Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I use a third party app called Buffer, which pushes them out. So that's what I use. But if I didn't push out to Twitter, I'd probably just use the Meta Business Suite. I use that a little bit at the parish, and that's free and a part of having Facebook and Instagram, and it'll cross post to both. So that you can schedule them out, and you don't always have to be like, okay, today is Mother's Day, I got to remember to like post Mother's Day when I have whatever my plans are for Mother's Day. And when you're able to schedule them and think ahead a little bit, you can make them in batches at a time. For me, the month ahead, and then it's a day or so that I spend planning it, and then it's planned for the month, which tends to be really helpful. Now, for like creating the content of the post, like sometimes it's just Googling like saints quotes, like, and pulling up a quote, looking through, figuring out like what's fitting. Like in this time of Eucharistic revival, any saint quote on the Eucharist, great thing. Always love using that. But some things that are like a little bit deeper, a little bit more researched, especially where I'm at the diocese right now, I'll loop in other people. Like last June, we did a series of posts on the LGBTQ community in the church, different resources that we have, what the church actually teaches, and just really wanting to make sure that those posts were approached with care, caution, and also very well researched and looked at by multiple people and not just myself. So that was reaching out to our coworker in the Office of Marriage and Family, reaching out to Father Damien, reaching out to the moral theologians if we needed to, and talking to everybody to make sure that it's good. So I'll send it up to other people if it's, especially when it's like a lot of information and a teaching on a certain subject. But if I'm writing the story of a saint, I'll just read it a couple times on a few different pages to make sure I'm getting aspects of it, and it's not just like this one page says that they did this, but I don't see that anywhere else. And then go from there.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
That's a lot of amazing stuff. So my face was that I just flipped my pen by accident. So sorry about that with the wonky. I was just like, whoops. But I'm happy to hear that, like, I recognize a lot of the resources that you use. So like, I'm kind of pleased with myself that like, I'm not like,
Totally out of touch
left
or anything
field
like.
and out of touch. I use Buffer, it's on my phone. I use some of the Meta Suite stuff. I don't always use it, like I don't always know which to use, what and where. I am becoming a Canva queen. I love Canva. I am really proud of myself.
Highly recommend. And it's good for everything, not just like your
Yeah.
social media posts. You can do invitations on there, signs, you can do your slide decks on there, like everything.
Yeah,
I designed
name
everything for
badges.
my wedding on Canva.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's so much that you can do, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel either. There's so many templates and things that are already there. So that's one of the things that I love about that. Do you ever use like Chat GPT or any kind of AI resources to help you get some of the verbiage? I'm okay with like the visual, like I'll get the visual. It is getting that language to add to it that I am terrible at. I freeze.
So I feel like I have not unleashed the true abilities of AI yet. And I have dabbled in it quite a few times, but not fully. And I don't use it like generally in my monthly work.
Okay.
A couple of the things I have used it for was like, I I had this really funny image in my head, and like Jesus, you know, says, come have breakfast. And I'm like, well, what is Jesus eating for breakfast? Obviously he's eating fish. Like it says in the thing, like they're having fish on the fire. And I was like, but like, he should be eating waffles. And like, uh, they, there's that quote from Shrek which is like a meme, and like Donkey's like, and in the morning I'm having waffles.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is so funny. I think this is so great. It's also like bearing in mind, like I run the youth ministry pages. Like this is teens. So like on April Fool's Day being the day after Easter this year, I had a picture of like the resurrection, and Mary Magdalene is weeping there, and Jesus says, no joke, Mary, I just rose, like, or something like that. Like, so like we can have some fun with it too.
Yeah.
But I asked AI to create an image of Jesus by the Sea of Galilee eating waffles. And that was just like, it's bringing your humanity into it. Like this is me, this is who I am, and this is like the things I think of and create. And so I asked him to do that. I also, like I know because in 6th grade, I did a really big project on ice cream. So I know that the like National Ice Cream Day is in July, like mid-July. I think it's July 16th, which last year I finally put together. I think it's July 16th, is also the feast day of Our Lady of Mount Carmel. Oh my gosh, like, of course, like, so the national, or not the national food, the appropriate food for the Feast of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, it's obviously a Carmel Sunday. And so, like I asked, I had AI create me an image of Our Lady of Mount Carmel eating ice cream. And like, so I'll do things like that with it. I've also used it for last year for our youth conference. I was just like in a creative rut, and I could not come up with another talk title. So I put some things in, and I was like, you know, like I need 5 ideas of talks for teens about the Eucharist. And it came up with a bunch, and I ended up using at least one of them, or tweaking it a little bit. And so, so I've used it somewhat, but I've not unleashed the whole potential of it. I think part of that also is because I've been doing this for a little while, so I've got like the way that I work and the way that I go. And if I'm like looking at the month, I'm like, okay, like I think we're gonna do like a quote for St. Dominic Savio this month. Like I want to do a quote rather than writing out his life, based on like, sometimes like it's like I have time for a quote, I don't have time for writing out his life, or I'm going to write out this person, so I'm not going to do that. So so there's so much potential in there, and some people are so massively creative with it. Actually, there's a parish in Texas that their digital ministries coordinator, whatever his job title is, his name's Jay Martin, and we overlapped. I spent a summer at Camp Cove Crest in Georgia that Life Teen runs, and he was on staff there at the time. And so just followed and kept up, and he's taken on this new role at the parish. And he's done so much with like Photoshop's AI generative fill. And like he will share about it too. And he like took a picture of their school, and their mascot is the Dolphins, which I only know because of this. I don't like go looking up schools, but he was explaining like his thought process behind it. And so he had a picture of their school. He turned the parking lot into water, and then he had dolphins jumping out of it. And it was like, happy end of summer, dolphins, or something like that. Like, and so he could use like these new tools are so incredible, and they offer like this great amount of creativity, and it just takes a asking it to do it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of options for what to do with it.
That's awesome. I appreciate you kind of going into that. I use it for brainstorming only because like my brain goes blank when I have to write something, or sometimes I just can't find the right word. And so I'll open it up and say, I need 5 words to describe whatever it is, or I need another word for this because I'm using the same word too many times. So, you know, I don't want to, I don't think that it's good for us to just drag and drop from any of that. I think it's important for us to use it as brainstorming and as a framework to then flesh out and utilize in our own way and to create it ourselves. Christy, I'm noticing we're really kind of hitting. This is so exciting though, but I think we kind of have to hit our last question. You want to toss it out?
Yeah. All right. I'm sad because I have like a million more questions and I was writing things down the entire time,
I
Cari,
know, me
saying
too.
like resources I don't even know about that I'm going to go find out about. But anyway, the last and the crux question that we have to ask everybody is, what do you wish you knew when you first started in ministry?
So I have been thinking about this quite a bit, and I remember like I started in ministry and I just graduated from college, and I was sitting there at my desk and I was like, I know nothing. Like I just spent like 4 years like in college learning these things, and I'm like, these kids do not care about what I learned and what I think is cool. Like I learned nothing. And I actually looked at, this is so funny because like as time went on, I saw like God like laughing at me at this moment, like because I'm sitting there like maybe holding my thesis and I'm like, what a waste of time. Like this is an 80-page paper and like it is telling me nothing on how to talk to these kids. How
Wow.
it works. But I just didn't like, I had some experience. I grew up in a really, really fruitful youth ministry, which is why I wanted to go into it. And I had that experience at Cove Crest, which was transformative and so amazing. If you're looking to be in youth ministry, you should really spend at least one summer in college working in some sort of camp counselor capacity, because that's really like, that's where your internship needs to be, not
That's
just
the stuff. Yeah.
yeah, you need to like be able to meet kids and practice those skills and talk to them and get that formation too.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sitting there and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I had a series of open gyms coming up, and I'm the least sporty person ever. I hate open gyms. And this kid shows up to open gym. I maybe had 2 at the first one. But I remember the one in particular, and I was like, I might have told him like, yeah, I don't really play basketball. I don't like basketball, but like I knew that the kids would come and play basketball, at least a few of them. And over time, I realized like, okay, like I'm not gonna like do things I don't like. Like
Mm-hmm.
I need to let my humanity into my ministry, because it is like me and my humanity that God has called, not just me a body to be here to watch teens play basketball or fail playing basketball with them. No, it's me being like, I cannot shoot a hoop, like, period. And the kid saying like, oh, you can't shoot, like, try. Or have you ever like changed your form to like actually be able to shoot a hoop? Or like one day when I was babysitting, like the kid was like, you don't know how to throw. I'm going to teach you how to throw. And like those like experience, like things like that connect and build relationships. And then they're like, oh my gosh, you are like, you are a person and like you care and you have like real experiences and you bring that into the ministry, and I understand who you are. Now I can like listen to you better and help, like, and you can understand, help me to understand who God is. And I had a youth minister like talk about this very thing recently with me. And she was saying, I was having so much trouble connecting to the teens. And the one day I was just in a really painful small group, and I gave up like waiting, because there's the period of time that you wait, because waiting means they're thinking. Silence means they're thinking. And she was like, I could not sit in silence with them anymore. It was so awkward. So I just started talking about my life. Like, You start telling them about how like later tonight, like I'm going to make pork chops for dinner. And last week I made these really awesome cookies. And then the one girl was like, oh my gosh, like you make sugar cookies or whatever. Like, well, let me see a picture. And then like, wait, like I make them too. And then finally, she was like, I didn't realize like I needed to like be who I am, share who I am with them to be able to like reach their hearts. And like that even goes into the digital stuff too. Like I'm an ice cream girl and I know when the feast or the National Ice Cream Day is. So I put that stuff together. I like waffles. Jesus eats waffles. That's a thing now. It's National Grilled Cheese Day and I happen to look that up and know that. So then I took myself to the internet and found the patron saint of cheesemakers, the patron saint of bread makers, and the patron saint of grilling. And I put it together and said, 3 saints for National Grilled Cheese Day. I think that's hilarious.
That last one, St. Lawrence, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Turn me over.
I was like, I know I have one of these 3. There's got to be another 2. Like they're out there somewhere. Maybe it was like the patron saint of like bees and honey or wait, why would that? I don't know. But like, yeah. So
That's amazing.
There's a lot of
bringing
squirrels.
yourself into it.
Yeah.
I think that's so important and such a good reminder. I had a night last night where we played games with the kids. I hate games.
Oh, she does hate games.
I'm not. And so I really tried to get other people to do the games. And they kept peeling off last minute. They just kept peeling off. And we got out there and we did games. And I did 2, but I mean, these kids know that I'm not a games person. So, I mean, they played along and it was fine and we had fun and we belly laughed and all of that. But I thank you for the reminder of sharing who you are, because I basically said, I found this one on TikTok. Actually, no, it wasn't on TikTok. It was on Facebook because that's the age I am, right? Like I'm not on TikTok, but TikTok on Facebook I'm on.
Yeah.
That's what I see, and so we did this thing that I saw on TikTok on Facebook. You know what I mean? So, and they were all like,
something so like wonderful about that like now a teenager is a teenager and they might be like, oh, you're a boomer, you're on Facebook. But
right?
like there's something wonderful about that they're like there's a joy to that to be like, but at least you're like looking out and you understand kind of what's going on and you kind of get TikTok, but you're not where we are, which is great. Like,
oh yeah.
Like we're really okay that you're not where we are.
There.
You can see some of it, but not all of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's what the church, well, that's actually not. The church is supposed to like just be there and be present and share and be that light in their feed. Something funny, something serious, something to teach them, something to remind them of who they are. To take a break, to put it down, and then to go be in the world, and not spend the whole time on social media, but to neglect the digital sphere is a grave error. The most recent synodal document that came out noted that too. Like we need to be there and be a part of this.
Thank you so much for your words of wisdom and reminding us about bringing our humanity to these spaces. That I think is so important, to bring ourselves and our humanity, because this is what God gave us. This is our blessing to the world and our gift. We are God's gift to the world. It's not meant in a goofy way, but we are a gift. And we have to do that in a prayerful way. And that's that fine line between being cocky and being a true blessing. Right. And so what is it that we have? And digital media, I just get so jazzed about it. And I'm really excited for this conversation. And I hope that, to do more in the digital world, because I think that there's so much benefit there. And so much excitement. So thank you for joining us. And I do hope that we will connect with you again after your transition, when you get a little bit more settled. I'd love to hear from you where the Lord has really shined with you in this new position. So thank you for joining us. Christy, thank you for introducing me to Cari.
My pleasure.
Everyone, Cari Reagan is with us today. Thank you for joining us with the Catholic Leadership Network podcast today. If you found this helpful, please share with those with whom you minister, and those who would find this helpful, click like and subscribe. The more you share, the more you like, the more you subscribe, the more you help our ministry. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day. Goodbye, everybody.
Peace.
Thank you for joining today's podcast. Please click the like and subscribe. And if you find this important to the conversations you're having in your local ministry, please share and join the conversation in the comments below. Thank you, and we'll see you next time on the Catholic Leadership Network podcast.